He is doing things quite differently from most people. And I don't want to introduce him at length too much because he speaks for himself, and it'll be very interesting to hear his own perspective about his journey, about how he lives his life, and about I see him as a guy spreading love around the world. And he has a unique combination of having a very important message to share and also being very talented. So it's like a magic combination there. And so I'm really happy and honored to have him on the show today. I first heard him at Envision Festival, and he blew my mind with his music. And I started following him online. I decided to become one of his Patreons, supporting him with a few dollars per month. So I follow his updates vicariously. He lives part of the year here in Costa Rica, part of the year traveling around the US playing music. So, guys, thank you very much for joining us. I always love to see where you're from. We have Cynthia tuning in from British Columbia. Good morning, Cynthia. Thanks for being with us this morning. So please, folks, let us know where you're watching from. And this show is brought to you by Karma Tribe, which is a global community of people willing to help each other for free. And it works through our website, karmatribe.com, where you can offer and request free services with people. According to your own gifts, whatever you want to share, you can put it on Karma Tribe. If there's something that you need, you can request for help on Karma Tribe. We're trying to create a hub where people can share their skills and depend less on money and have the pleasure of connecting with like-minded people. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome the man of the hour, Mr. Matthew Human.
Well, thank you, David. What an honor.
It's great to have you with us today. So when I first met you, you introduced yourself to me as Human. And that was very thought-provoking for me. And why is that?
Why am I human?
Yeah.
Well, David, I guess it had to do something with the way the cosmic energies all aligned. I was born on planet Earth, thus making me a human. I incarnated into this physical body of two humans who mated, and now that's why I'm a human. Is that what you want to know?
Yeah.
Maybe why my name is Human.
Yeah. Why do you go by Human? Is it because you feel like we shouldn't get too involved with the details of our personal story, or?
Well, that's interesting. That's a part of it, actually. It was 2003. I was inspired by one of the musicians who inspired me at the time was Michael Franti and Spearhead, and they had been doing a lot of conscious music, and that was inspiring to me. And one of their albums was called Stay Human, and just the album title itself got me thinking, which is also a great album, by the way. Stay Human's awesome. And it got me thinking about being a human. And I also studied anthropology at the university. I was a primate studies major, and so it was all. And anthropology is actually the study of human cultures, and so it was always something that's really been big in my mind, like what makes us human, what separates us from other creatures. And at the time, there was a astrologer who came to one of my shows who was really well known in the community, and she told me after the show, she's like, I think you should change your name. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, I was going by Matthew Earthfire at the time, which was also my astrology. I was born on the cusp of fire and earth signs, so if an astrologer is telling me I should change it, I just thought it was like worth listening to. So I thought about it. She's like, I just think that your name should reflect the people you want to reach with your music, and you have this universal. Your music is universal, and I think you should consider changing it. So I thought about like, well, who do I want to reach with my music? And every name I could think of was something that had some kind of prejudice to it, and I just kind of narrowed it down to the least common denominator was human. It's like that's the one thing that every single one of us have in common. And yeah, so the 2003 I started going by human. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. Well, before we get into really getting to know you and asking you a lot of deep questions and put you on edge, could you play us a couple songs?
Sure. Yeah. I guess I didn't know what I was gonna start with, but I'll start with the human song. How about that one?
Sounds appropriate.
Yeah. So someone asked me last year, well, during the last U.S. election, it was, you know, Trump and Bernie and Hillary and all the fun characters, and you know, I've always been a very politically motivated, politically active. I think it's important to be involved in democracy, and you know, I kind of just was so overwhelmed by the whole reality and took a step back, and I was just like, wow. And I guess people were maybe a little surprised that I didn't have more to say, you know, musically about there, because, you know, we culturally we look to musicians and activists and artists to like kind of be our voice box, and people kind of had known me as that, as their voice, and you know, why wasn't I saying anything? So someone asked me to write a song about the election and how I felt, and I think this is I can't ever force, you can't ever force you know, what I consider music and channeling. What I do anyways, how I approach it is that I don't force it, because then it's not real, you know. So I just wait for it to come, and this is what naturally, and if nothing was not naturally coming at that time until this song. So this was my response to the 2016 elections. Was it 2016? I don't know. And you can sing along too if you want. I'm not a Democrat, not a Republican, I'm not white, I'm not black, no, I'm not Indian, I'm not American, I'm not a terrorist, I'm a human. I'm not a city boy, I'm not a country man, not suburban, working 3 jobs to pay the rent. I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a Rothschild, I'm a human. I was born on the earth, third rock from the sun, member of the Milky Way. I need water and food, shelter and love, though I wouldn't mind some chocolate in a hot tub today. I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm not gay, I'm not straight, I'm not bi, I'm not trans. I like to snuggle, I don't like trouble, I'm a human. This is the whistle part. Whistle with me. Come on. I was born on the earth, third rock from the sun, member of the Milky Way, so they say. I need water and food, shelter and love, though I wouldn't mind some durian and a massage today. I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Jew, I believe to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Hindu, I'm a human. Yes, I know I'm complex, I'm just a hot mess, I'm a human. Now everybody can sing along. I'm a human. Come on, everybody at home, I hear you. I'm a human. Just in case anybody was wondering, what are you? I'm a human. One more time.
I'm a human.
I'm a human.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Otra.
All right. I got another one here for you. song called Simple Ways. Kind of about the way I like to live my life. For years it was just a dream. Now it's a reality. Some people like the TV. Not me, I just watch the sky. I feel a better sense of freedom watching the hawks and eagles fly. And the sound of the river running free out to sea, running through the canyons, yeah, that's what fills me. It's time to plant our gardens, get ready for another year. Take advantage of this weather while the sky is still blue and clear. Corn and beans, squash and kale like to grow together. Save our seeds and keep them dry, and we'll be eating right forever. Give me a simple life in the country where I can be free. Give me a fresh spring in a garden, that's all that I need. I need an earth home on this planet to live out my days. My heart, it really loves those simple ways. A nice stretch in the morning, rise and say hi to the sun. You know we got a lot of work to do, and there's enough for everyone. Rain's gonna be coming soon, we got a lot of wood to move. We gotta keep this family dry if it's the only thing we do. Give me a simple life in the country where I can be free. Give me a fresh spring in a garden, that's all that I need. I need an earth home on this planet to live out my days. My heart, it really loves those simple ways. Real food from the garden every day. Jarring up what we don't eat and putting it away. Life in our own village. Listen to the children play. Swimming in the river at the end of the day. Whoa. Yeah. Yeah. Give me a simple life in the country where I can be free. Give me a fresh spring in a garden, that's all that I need. I need an earth home on this planet to live out my days. My heart, it really loves those simple ways. 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 Thank you. Thank you so much.
So beautiful.
Thanks, brother.
Your words really resonate in my heart, and the that's what I want too, man. That's what I really want.
I have it in my thought to believe that many people on Earth want that. Which makes you wonder why we're doing what we're actually doing.
Yeah. Personally, I have a theory that people are just kind of like asleep, like not really in touch with their own, what they really want, you know? They don't, like, I think like we would really all love to have a very pleasant life, pleasant relationships, feel physically good. But for some reason, we're like under these layers of compulsive action and habits and fears. And when, like, did you have like some kind of breakthrough in your life where you suddenly started realizing like what was really important, or have you always been deeply aware of these things?
There's been a couple moments, I think, yeah, like where, I mean, I think that I feel like I'm constantly having those those like wake up moments. But my friend Stephen Brooks likes to call it the and there's been a couple of those in my life. One, if I can be honest and blunt, is I was like I think I was maybe like 19, and I was working night shift at a gas station. And on my days off, I had, I was up all night, so I would stay up all night. I would go. There was this college house. I'd go go get stoned with those guys and come home. And I remember one day being just really stoned, really high on cannabis, and walking through my pantry at my house, my parents' house. And at the time, I really wasn't that aware of food or what I was eating. And I just remember like stopping, and the first time I read an ingredients list, and I read the ingredients to the cereal I was about to eat. It was a Raisin Bran, and I really loved Raisin Bran with like milk, and then soy milk eventually once I quit drinking milk. That was like my thing. And the first time I read those ingredients, I just like, it hit me hard. I was just like, I don't know what these things are, and I'm putting it into my body, and it's becoming me. Like, these things are coming into me and becoming part of my body. Do I want those things to become part of my body? So that was one big one that put me on the path of how, first of all, the food system and what are we doing? How did we get to the place where we're at, where we're consuming all these weird chemicals? Why are we consuming these strange chemicals? Oftentimes, it's because of, well, they're trying to either cut corners, or they're trying to make you more addicted, or they're just trying to get rid of some corporate product that they can't put anywhere else because they have its waste. It's a waste product that they're trying to recycle into the system. But does that mean it should be going through our bodies? There's a pretty major cancer epidemic going on the planet. Maybe we should be eating things that we know are safe and healthy. That was another one. And then I had another one, I think, at a big, I was at a rainbow gathering and in Idaho, surrounded by amazing people and rainbows in the sky. Just like, I was having a really deep experience, and I had a very strong moment where I realized that if I take care of if I stop worrying about the things that I can't control, and I start putting my energy into things, just let go of fear and start trusting, and trust in the universe, and trust that I'm going to always be taken care of and supported. Because at the time I was like, well, but what if I can't afford to eat I want to buy organic food. I want to support organic farmers, but I couldn't really afford it. And I just let go of that whole thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to let go of the fear that I can't do something, and I'm going to start just doing it, and it's going to come back to me. And that's the way it's always been. I've lived on a serious amount of faith, and sometimes I come close to the edge and I'm like, like scared. I get scared. We all do, I think, sometimes, but it's always worked out, What are you going to do? Worst case, Steven always says, he's one of my teachers, one of my best friends. He's also one of my teachers. And he says, worst case scenario is freaking amazing, Anyway.
And well, what about your journey of being a musician? Did you have to take a leap of faith there to do that? When
Yeah.
when you were studying anthropology, did you have a bit of a different future in mind?
No, to be honest. Well, yes and no. I didn't really have much of a vision of a future, to be honest. I took a year off after college, after high school, and I knew I wanted to study what I was passionate about, and humans and culture was something I was very passionate about, and so that's why I went into anthropology. It was actually in an anthropology class that I had a major breakthrough. Teacher was talking about rain shadows, and I had this moment where I something hit me, and as soon as she said rain shadow and described what it was, I started writing this song, and it just was the first time I'd ever really quickly channeled the song. Well, maybe not the first time, but it was one of the most profound moments of I still remember it to this day. It was maybe, you know, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that now, and I still remember that moment. And I remember just being so inspired writing this song down. And I wrote this song called Rain Shadow, which was about at the time, this was pre US, in the US, pre 9/11, pre September 11th, which for the United States, those of us in the United States, was a really big momentous shift.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, the US, people were living in this kind of false sense of security. And we were at the same time, like, we knew that we were somehow responsible for what was going on around the planet. Like, we were supplying arms and military aid and all these things to all these wars that were going on all over Europe and the Middle East, or mostly the Middle East, and Africa, and in Eastern Europe. And, I felt like, the one of the lines from the song is, it's just a matter of time before the rain is falling on our side. And that was a week before September 11th. And so a week later, the rain was falling on our side, and everything I had written in this song came to pass. And I realized that I was tapped into something that felt really much more important to me than, I mean, what else? What was I going to do? I was going to become a teacher in anthropology. Like, I didn't even really like, I didn't like most of my professors. Some of them were pretty cool, but, it was just like, that was not really a path forward. And music just, I always wanted to be a musician, but then once I wrote that song, and I felt like I had, a gift that I had to share, and it was just like, it was part of, if I had this ability to tap into something greater and share it with people, then I should. So that was kind of, for me, it took a leap of faith, but it was like, it was one that I was passionate about. So I feel like when you know something in yourself, it makes it easier, to like not look back, just keep going, keep moving forward. Don't look back.
Yeah. And when did you meet Stephen Brooks? Was that before you moved to Costa Rica or afterwards?
Before, yeah. Stephen brought me to Costa Rica for the first time. And for those of you who don't know, who are watching at home, Stephen Brooks is a permaculture educator. He's been down in Costa Rica for, I don't know, close to 20-something years, 25 years maybe. 25 years. He started the Punta Mona Center for Regenerative Education, and a number of other projects, including the community I live at, and a couple other, amazing land projects. Also one of the co-founders of Envision Festival. And at the time, Stephen was, when I met him, one of my bandmates introduced me to him backstage at a festival called Earth Dance in Northern California. And she introduced me to him, and she was like, this is a big meeting. This is a big meeting. You guys have to meet. And I was like, okay. And we immediately, pretty quickly hit it off. And I think the next year we ended up like, we were pretty inseparable for a while. And Stephen had all these other projects going on. One of them was a travel show on the TV show on the Travel Channel. Another one was a food company that they had just launched into Whole Foods. And we went down to, we were at, see, they used to hire me to come and play their events. So I played the launch of his Travel Channel show in New York City when they did that. And they brought me to Expo West, which is a natural products expo for their food company. And we're all sitting on the bus playing music. And they had this veggie oil powered bus that they would drive around the country and bring awareness to the products that sponsored them, one Copali and a bunch of the other products. And I remember sitting on the bus and Steven's like, Human, why haven't you ever come to Costa Rica? And I was just like, I don't know. No one's ever invited me and I never really could afford it. And that was, I was a hand to mouth musician, and I had been spending a lot of my winters for the last 4 years before that. I had been going to Hawaii because once I discovered the tropics for winter time, I never wanted to go back. I grew up in upstate New York and middle Ohio and middle Tennessee, northeast Ohio, middle Tennessee, and all those places are very cold, and I just didn't want to have any more cold winters. So that winter he brought me down. He invited me down to and so he brought me to Punta Mona, and he brought me to the place where I now live in the San Mateo, and all over. We went all over the country. Earth University. We went to Fortuna, and he's just one of those guys who always has a million things going on, and just a really inspiring in that way. I'm a little more detail. Like, I tend to get caught up in details, and Steven's a little more like, there's nothing we can't do. Let's go, Steven, don't you, David?
Yeah, I know him. I'm like had the privilege of getting to know him a bit more this year. He invited me to check out that community where you live, and it blew my mind.
Yeah,
and,
it's really amazing. I was just there actually, and I'm just like, it's really mind blowing. Yeah. And he's developed. Now there's this bought the other side of the road. We sold all the lots at La Covia are now sold. Taco Stall, our community still has some places that we're trying to fill with really and people who are amazing who want to live in permaculture, consensus-based permaculture eco village. So if you're interested in that, definitely find me and hit me up, MatthewHuman.com. And we have a few places, people that want to trade out their shares for other people. And then also there's another project right across the street that's they're just starting to develop with another 70 lots. And it's really kind of feels like we're creating like an international peace village is really what it feels like. There's like people from, 30 different countries represented in our little neighborhood there. And we have a great relationship with all the locals. We have a great relationship with all the locals. They love us. The city, the town, local town, they love us. They support us. They want to help make it. And, we're exemplifying good neighbors, peace, and a good international community. So anyway, hit me up if you're interested.
What do you think are, like, what's the key to living in harmony with a bunch of different people and, inevitably, egos, sprout up here and there, and like, sometimes there's just differences of opinion. How do you live in harmony with strangers?
Well, I think that's the $1 million question, and it's absolutely the biggest challenge that I've ever had in my life, and I think it's maybe one of the biggest challenges facing humanity is how do we get along with each other? How do we get along with people that we sometimes on a very basic level don't agree with? I think one is it's important to live in community with people who have where you basically generally agree on some things. You may not agree on everything, but there's some of the things that we all agree on are regenerative agriculture and living in an ecologically mindful way. I think it's really important, compassionate communication and how we relate to each other. Nonviolence is another one of our clauses. And just, I think, keeping those things really vague as possible, but with as much intent. So those are kind of some of our main core tenets. And then beyond that, I think it's been just be a good neighbor, like, and when situations arise, be able to communicate about it. Um, Compassionate communication, counseling. Something that really inspired me this year, our neighboring community, La Acovia, they do these men's circles, and I went to one of the men's circles and was just inspired by that, like the way the community gathers together, just the men, and then there's the women's circles, and then there's many gatherings where people are just getting and just like Karma Tribe, people are kind of offering the things that they have, and they're not necessarily needing to get paid for it. It's like one of our members is a yoga teacher, and she teaches yoga for free once a week, like, and it's just her gift to the community. Like, I'm a musician and I play music, and just in general being of service to each other. What do you need? How can I help? Like, that's it, man. Give as much as you can and take as little as you need.
So human, when you it seems like you have like such a vast variety of songs.
I have a pretty big variety of songs.
Do you have like some like discipline in your life of like saying like, okay, now I need to sit down and write, or is it it just flows through inspiration, the writing new material?
Will you say that one more time, David? It got a little
Yeah.
fuzzy there for a minute.
Do you use any like routines of discipline, like for example, some writers say, well, the secret to my success is like that every day at 9 a.m. I sit down and write. I think like Stephen King, one of the most prolific authors, like that's what he says. So I was wondering, for a full-time artist like yourself, whether you tackle your music career in like a disciplined way, or it's more like just pure inspiration.
Well, I think I go through waves. I mean, for me in the past, it's mostly been pure inspiration. Like, if I'm not inspired, it's really hard for me to write, period. Mm-hmm. Coming to Nashville, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. It's where I'm broadcasting from now. And there's a different culture here around songwriting. That's been really inspiring, and it's really influenced me a lot. It's more built around craft. The craft of songwriting. Like, in the past I would write a song and it was just like, I write the song and then I don't usually touch it, and then it's just done. And, oftentimes those are great songs. Mm-hmm. The question is, can you make a song better? In that way, yeah. So through craft, you can. There's ways you can, like, look at it. But to answer your question, do I have a set thing? Not really. There's definitely like people who do that, like there's people who are paid 9 to 5 songwriters. If I had a publishing deal, for instance, I would have a publisher, and they would basically be paying me a salary, and then I would be required to produce so many songs per week. That's never really been my thing. I mean, I think I would be interested in giving that a shot, because I think it would be really interesting to see what I could come up with. I've done that at times where I've got, like, rented an Airbnb and just wrote and just got away and just wrote, and but there needs to be some aspects there for me. One is space. I need a lot of space for my mind to be clear and open. I can't be over bogged down with with too much details. I don't know, but like I said, you push yourself and see what you can come up with. I've definitely set up co-writes where I didn't think anything was going to come out of it, and something came out of it. I've definitely set up co-writes, which is co-writing is another thing that they do here. It's a really normal practice here in Nashville, where you get together with other writers and you come up with a song, which is very, very different to me than anything I had ever done before, because the idea of inspiration comes, it's like, I'm sure he sits there and rewrites he sits there and like goes through stuff and re-edits and rewrites, and that's called craft. It's like, it's part of the, oh, could I have said this a little differently? Maybe I don't want to introduce this just quite yet. Those are little, like, writer tricks that come up, that yeah, it's definitely something I've been studying a lot more being here in Nashville, and then having the ability to just write on the spot. It's not something I've done in the past really much, but I'm learning to. Mm-hmm.
A human, there's a question I want to ask you that that I think is a very interesting one. Do you feel like your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness? Do you think that applies to you in any ways?
That's a really deep question, David. Do I feel like my greatest strength is my greatest weakness? I can see that. I can see how that would be. Yeah, I mean, do you want me to elaborate?
Yeah, if you're willing.
Do you want me to express what my greatest strengths and weaknesses are? I don't want to be. It's a very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable question. It makes me question to answer. It's a. It makes me feel vulnerable to answer that question. That's what I was trying to say.
It's up to you. No pressure.
Well, it's not that I don't feel. It's just it's an interesting question. It's deep. It's profound. I mean, in the moment, like, what is my great? Well, what is my greatest strength? What is my greatest weakness? I think sometimes I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I think one of my greatest weaknesses is self-confidence, and I think sometimes I lack that. I lack self-confidence, and it seems interesting to say that because people often see me as this person who's very confident and, like, I'm a performer, and I'm also, depending on the situation you see me, like, I can be super, like, I was just thinking, like, the other day, if I'm for instance, like, I can be really shy sometimes too, like, just like, what's that all about? And it surprises people. And on the other hand, I think one of the things try to um, I strive towards is humility and humbleness. And I think those two things are kind of they kind of go hand in hand in a way. It's like, people who are really overly self-confident don't understand humility really. And so in that sense, I would say, yeah, like, and it's kind of interesting in a way. It's like they're two sides of the same coin in a way. It's like you've got humility on one end, you've got low self-esteem on another end. It's an interesting question, David.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Well, when you started saying that it's self-confidence, I thought you were going to say, my self-confidence is so high. So on one hand, it gives me, like, makes a lot of things easier, but on the other hand, it gives me, like, illusions. Or I thought it was the other way around for you. So it's amazing. It's amazing that it's surprising to hear that. I guess the shoemaker doesn't always have the finest shoes, as they say. But you on stage, and for example, in this conversation, you seem like so authentic and like powerful and a man on a mission, and it exudes self-confidence. So it's surprising to hear that.
Well, yeah, and it's just part of, I don't feel like it's something that, like, I deal with every day or cripples my life, or I'm very clear. You're right. In some ways, I'm very clear on what my mission is and what I'm doing here. And there's other moments where I'm just like, am I doing the right thing? There's self-doubt is something, and I think it comes with being not only just self-inquiry, which I think is really important to be able to ask questions like that, um, but also, just being an artist in today's world, it's a struggle, man. I mean, I know we're all struggling in some way, but I think in some ways, like, the music industry itself is like being an artist is a very difficult one, and a musician, songwriter in this day and age is, I think, even one of the more difficult paths I could have chosen. So it's constantly has you like going, what am I doing?
Yeah. But even that has two sides to it, because on the other hand, your music can reach unprecedented quantities of people. It's just probably like the economics are like very challenging.
It's exactly the case. On many levels, it's absolutely surprisingly fulfilling, and it just like, it fills my heart. That's why I've been able to spend, 20 years of my life and almost every dollar I've ever earned and put it back into my career. Where I've got friends who are, whatever, growing pot or going into like stocks and bonds or whatever they were doing, people who have been accumulating wealth, financial wealth. I've gone in a different direction, and it's interesting because I feel very fulfilled in some ways, and yet like we're still living in the material world, and the systems that we've continued to agree to use are not necessarily sometimes it's hard to make ends meet. For instance, like healthcare. I live in the United States at this moment, and if I got sick tomorrow, I just don't even know what I would do. It's like I don't really have good healthcare. It's like, or there's just things that financially you've got to be yeah, anyways, that's a whole can of worms. I don't know if I want to go into that.
Well, it's interesting because actually everyone that I asked this question to, it actually like ends up like really striking a chord, and they find out that, actually, wow, my greatest strength actually is my greatest weakness, like on a deep level. And so I think I don't know. Personally, I think my theory on it is that there's all different kinds of things in this universe that have these kind of dualities that just are two sides of the same coin, as you said. Like, for example, like matter and space, front and back, even like good and bad. We can't have any sense of the word bad if we didn't have good, So like it's kind of like two things that exist because of each other, positive and negative. Like, so I don't know. I think it's a very interesting question, and thanks for giving us a bit of insight into your life, like, even though it's a vulnerable thing.
It is. I mean, but hey, what do we got to hide? At the other level, it's like, what's the point in trying to hide it? I feel like one of the things that social media has really helped with is it's really helped us all to see that we're not alone in the way we feel about things, that we see that there's other people who have the same experiences that we do. And, there's a lot of people who struggle. I mean, there's a lot of people who struggle with self-confidence. I'm sure that's true. And, I mean, I definitely am. I'm sure I'm not the one lacking the most. I know I'm more self-confident than many, but it's still something I deal with. I'm sure we all do in some way. Self-doubt. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one, but I don't think so.
No, you're not the only one. And I think it almost always comes back to like little traumas that we experienced in our childhood, or from parents, family members, influences, things that we saw, and kind of like lingers within you as like a little knot or a little block, and can weigh you down. But about the social media, it's interesting. It's just the tool, right? And it just depends how you use it. And if, as you said, like if you use it to really express authentic feelings, then you discover that it's an amazing tool, because you connect with people, like people resonate with what you're saying, and they connect with you, and like if you use it in an authentic way, you get like an authentic feedback. But most people use it in a very superficial way, and then they end up like really hating social media because then their feed is just all superficial things, and it's just kind of a medium where like what you put out there you get back. And I think everything is of that nature.
Karma.
Cynthia says Matthew is a very talented musician.
Thank you.
So we're kind of running low on time, but Human, could you please play a couple more songs for us?
Sure. Yeah. What do I? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Is that we're gonna end it out with a couple songs? I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Pull this back. Can y'all hear me? Hear me good? All right. Here's a song I wrote about my community in Costa Rica. When will my bananas be ripe? When will the mangoes fall to the ground? How many days until full light? Until the moon is full in the sky. These are the questions that I had. How did my life get so sweet? I got everything a man could need, even a few avocados heavy on the tree, but I don't have you. So I guess I don't have everything, but I don't feel so blue, 'cause I got love in my community. Whoa. I got a lot to celebrate. Yeah, I got my health and the sun is shining today. And from where I am, I see a long life ahead. And at the end of the day, I've got a nice soft bed. I know I really shouldn't complain so much, and it's good to remember good things that we have. I got so much love surrounding me. I'm only human. Sometimes I still get sad because I don't have you. So I guess I don't have everything, but I don't feel so blue, 'cause I got love in my community. Whoa. 'Cause I got love in my community. Yeah. All right, how about one more and then we'll call it off?
Sure.
Okay.
I want to also say dude, like how sentimental you are, you know, it's also has that duality of like, maybe you're being sentimental has caused like emotional suffering for you in your life, but it makes for like the most amazing art, you know? It really touches the heart, bro.
Thanks, brother. Oh, it's the art. It's the artist struggle. It really is, man. It's like that emotional torture, but it makes such good art sometimes. It sure does. Who can't relate, you know?
Yeah.
Here's a song for your Karma tribe.
Woo!
This is called Thank You. Thank you, brothers, for all the things you do. Thank you, sisters, I feel for all of this mess that you're going through. Know that I'm your brother and I'll always be here for you. No matter what it is, I'll be right by your side to help you. And we are all angels in this world. Spirit looks through all our eyes, and I believe that someday we'll all find it. Yes, and I see someday we'll all live together, many people in one tribe, with a clear and common vision for all of us to live in this world. And thank you, sisters, for all the things you do. I appreciate your energy, and I will always be right here for you. Oh, and I know, brothers, life can be hard sometimes. Oh, it'll teach you to trust, to love, and who you must stay away from. And we are all angels in this world. Spirit looks through all our eyes, and I believe that someday we'll all find it. Yes, and I see someday we'll all live together, many people in one tribe, with a clear and common vision for all of us to live in this world. And I'll share with you what I got. Though it ain't much, I know that things are gonna get better, especially the hard times teach us the things we need. 'Cause everyone's an angel and everyone's a devil, somebody somewhere out there. When we see through all this physical, the material lines we draw will disappear. And we are all angels in this world. Spirit looks through all our eyes, and I believe that someday we'll all find it. Yes, and I see someday we'll all live together, many people in one tribe, with a clear and common vision for all of us to live in this world. All right. Thank you, David. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Karma Tribe.
Thank you, my brother. So beautiful.
It's an honor, man.
You're what I love and appreciate your work so much, and I'm gonna bump up my Patreon contribution.
Woo! Thank you.
And
Patreon, David has been one of my amazing patrons. If you would like to join me, patreon.com/MatthewHuman.
Yeah, bro, what you're doing is amazing for the world, and don't underestimate your impact.
Thank you, David.
And you'll get there. Your Patreon will eventually get to that level where you'll be no more financial worries, and that'll be a glorious day.
Yeah, yes, it will. And yeah, I think you it's really like I think a lot about, living in Nashville and being an artist. It's one of the things I really think about, like, how do we make a living as an artist in the modern day? Like, you probably noticed that you're not paying much for music these days. Most people don't pay anything for music. They go to Spotify, they go to YouTube, they go to whatever. Young people, like, who never grew up going to CD stores. See, I'm a little old. I'm an old man now, and but there's a whole generations of people who've never paid anything for music, and so they don't see the value in it that way that we were kind of forced to in the past by buying CDs. Like, we grew up, I would go get my paycheck from work, and I would go to this first thing I do is go to the CD store and buy 4 or 5 new CDs every week, like, or at least 1 or 2. Like, it's how I discovered the Beatles and, all my favorite musicians. Pink Floyd, like, I bought their CDs. And I would go home and I'd read the liner notes and listen to the music and just really go deep with it. I think that's gotten lost in our culture.
Yeah.
And also because of that, so that's one of the casualties. But then also, like, because of that, artists can't sell their music anymore, and it costs a lot of money to produce that music. So how do we continue to support ourselves? How do we continue to be able to keep creating music? And I think Patreon is one of the solutions. It's one of the ways that we can, and just, musicians don't want to ask for money. I know I don't like asking for money because, like, I'm with you. I want to offer my gifts for free. At the same time, how do I make a living? How do I pay my bills? How do I take care of myself if I get sick? How do I, there's just financial realities involved. And also, if you love an artist and you want them to keep making good music, well, they got to go back into the studio, and that costs money. So it's like, the artist needs to be supported. So it's interesting because I've always felt like musicians kind of got thrust into the karma tribe. Like, we don't even necessarily always want to be in the karma tribe, but we're like, well, you don't want to pay us, so what are we gonna do? I don't know. Like, we want to keep making music. We want to make you happy, or whatever, and not everyone has their own experience, but it's been, I feel like artists and musicians in general have been kind of like part of the social experiment. Well, it's just like taxi drivers, we're becoming financially, it's becoming irrelevant in a way. It's like there's other, why buy a CD when you can get it for free here, or why listen to, it's just a reality. So patreon.com, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, and I love how you explain this, and in fact, every time you explain this on your videos,
yeah,
it's not just about supporting you, but it's about changing people's, like, educating people basically on this issue, and hopefully our society can start to learn about this and be more conscious of this, and, like, everyone can start devoting a bit of their paycheck towards the artists that they most love. I mean, it's totally natural, and it's a great system. It's just no one really knows about it yet. No one really knows how it works.
Right. Yeah. Patreon's pretty new, and we're all kind of familiar with crowdfunding, so it's very similar. But I think oftentimes we feel like, oh, well, we have to give $10 or $20 or $50 or whatever. But even, like, for me, like, yes, I love those people, because if they feel that inspired to support me, like, that's great. And some people just can do that, and some people can't. But I know, even myself, I could give $1. Like, I have $1 a month. I give $1 a month to random people on the street. You know what I mean? Like, why would I not support one of my friends? I'd buy a cup of coffee for a buddy. Like, it's not a big deal. $3 a month. And, you know, so, and you're right. If you do, and hopefully the artists are giving back in return, you know, like I do for myself. I have all these different like levels of perks, and, you know, how about 95 produced tracks, 20 years of produced music for $3 is kind of like my best offer I can give. But, you know, I wanted to make it affordable for people to like my music and listen to it if they want to. And I'd love to give it away for free. I'm just trying to figure out ways to support myself is all, you know.
For sure, man. I think in coming years, it's just gonna get a lot easier. I that's what I predict.
So, I love that prediction, David. Yeah.
So keep up the great work. I look forward to reading your updates and watching your videos, and hope to see you in Costa Rica sometime in the coming year.
It will happen. It's coming. I'll be back. I will let you know.
Great. All right. Good luck in Nashville.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for being with us. Bye, everyone.